Welcome to Women of Ice and Fire, a celebration of the female characters of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. Hello, I'm Kate, and I usually cover Washington Capitals hockey. But with the hockey season ending prematurely, I decided to turn my hand to talking about A Song of Ice and Fire because, well, with all of us confined to our homes for the foreseeable future, there is just not enough content. The internet. I've reached the end of it. Netflix? I finished it. I finished Netflix. Well, as the crab said, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself. So here's the plan. Each of these videos will be a character study or profile of one woman. Some women, mainly the ones for whom we have a lot more information, will require more than one video. My goal is to celebrate the women of Westeros and beyond by making each woman the hero of her own story. We will try to consider her motivations, the things that shaped her in childhood, how her place in the feudal system serves her, or more often doesn't. We'll look at any symbolism or literary allusion surrounding her character. I'll profile women that I adore, and women who make me cringe, and women who make me rage when I read them. I'll profile women from great houses and of the small folk, trueborn and bastards, ladies, princesses, barmaids and queens, septas, spearwives, and sex workers. But for each of them, I want to consider her story from her point of view. So let's begin. We'll begin with possibly the most pivotal character in history that we know next to nothing about. In the Freehold of Valyria, with the Maiden Daughter of Aenar Targaryen. This is how Daenys the Dreamer, Daenys Targaryen, is described each of the 3 times that she's mentioned in A Song of Ice and Fire and the supplemental materials. In A Feast for Crows, in the Kraken's Daughter chapter, Roderick the Reader mentions offhandedly that Marwyn claims to have found 3 pages of signs and portents, visions written down by the Maiden Daughter of Aenar Targaryen before the doom came to Valyria. In the World of Ice and Fire, Maester Yandel drops this tantalizing morsel in the ancient history section. And then, unexpected to all, save perhaps Aenar Targaryen and his maiden daughter, Daenys the Dreamer, the doom came to Valyria. Excuse me, Maester? Maester? Maester, I have a question. Maester, are you saying that a young Valyrian girl foresaw the doom of Valyria? A massive volcanic eruption of at least 14 volcanoes that destroyed the hub of a hemisphere-dominating empire in one day. That doom of Valyria? And her Lord Father believed her? Yes, my child. Exactly. Let's consider. We're told that signs and portents includes the dreams and visions of Aenar's maiden daughter recorded before the doom. Let's try to consider what Daenys' childhood in the Freehold might have been like. Maester Yandel also tells us, at its apex, Valyria was the greatest city in the known world, the center of civilization. Within its shining walls, 20 rival houses vied for power and glory in court and council, rising and falling in an endless, subtle, oft savage struggle for dominance. The Targaryens were far from the most powerful of the Dragon Lords, and their rivals saw their flight to Dragonstone as an act of surrender, as cowardice. But Lord Aenar's maiden daughter Daenys, known forever afterward as Daenys the Dreamer, had foreseen the destruction of Valyria by fire, and when the doom came 12 years later, the Targaryens were the only Dragon Lords to survive. At the time, Valyria was a cross-continental empire, encompassing thousands of miles, 40 dragon rider families, many thousands of non-dragon riding citizens, magic, massive wars of conquest, mines full of gold and gems, and of course the many thousands of slaves toiling in those mines in anonymity. Even if the Targaryens were the very least of the dragon riding families, Daenys' father was still an important and powerful man, with properties in the freehold itself and the surrounding countryside. Daenys had a brother named Gaiman, who she probably grew up expecting to marry, as well as a younger sister. We know very little about the daily life of a highborn Valyrian girl. We don't even know if Daenys was a dragon rider herself. Nothing is said of her personality, whether she was playful or grave, if she liked to sing or to ride, or if she studied the higher mysteries. All we know is that she had a vision and she told her father. Evidence seems to suggest that Daenys had a proven track record. Signs and portents being recorded at all tells us that the prediction of Valyria's doom was not only not her only vision, but her father's actions lead us to believe that Daenys must have been right before. Because Aenar's actions point us to only one conclusion. He believed her. Daenys the Dreamer, as a story, seems to me to be an inversion of the story of Cassandra of Troy. Cassandra was the daughter of King Priam, who served in the temple of Apollo as a maiden. And in fact, in some stories, she had actually taken a vow of chastity. Different versions of the story exist, but all agree that she was cursed after refusing her favors to the god Apollo, and that curse was that she would always speak true prophecy, but never be believed. Cassandra prophesied every terrible event of the Trojan War, up to and including the fall of Troy. Even when she ran at the Grecian horse, waving an axe and a torch to try and warn her countrymen or take out the Greeks inside herself, no one believed her. In Euripides' The Trojan Women, Cassandra prophesies her own capture by Agamemnon and subsequent murder by his embittered wife Clytemnestra. But no one ever believes her. Not her countrymen, not her brother Paris, who she prophesied would return after being abandoned in the wilderness as a child, not her mother, not the other maidens in the temple, and certainly not her father, King Priam, who kept her locked in a pyramid amidst those topless towers of Troy. Beyond the original Greek myths and stories, Cassandra has entered the canon of literature and the English language as a trope. Doomed to speak the truth always and never be believed, she's an exceptionally tragic figure. Aren't we all glad, for Daenys' sake, that George R.R. Martin likes nothing better than turning a well-established trope on its head? Aenar Targaryen believed his daughter. As previously mentioned, we might assume that Daenys had a proven track record, given that someone in her life thought it worth writing her prophecies down. But then she went to her father, and she told him whatever it was that she told him. "Papa, I had a bad dream." Or, "Father, all of Valyria will succumb to the fire of the 14 flames on such and such a date," or something in between. But Aenar believed her. We might imagine different things that Aenar did after that. Perhaps he tried to warn the other powerful families of Valyria. We could imagine him in a plaza in Valyria of old with a baby Balerion the Black Dread on his shoulder, shouting that the end is nigh like a manic street preacher or a particularly bizarre-looking Chicken Little. But somehow, I don't think so. The histories do not tell us of a mass exodus of Valyrians from Valyria. Some Valyrians did survive, even a few with their dragons, in Gogossos or in Lys, in a far-flung posting of the Empire or the Valyrians' favorite vacation spot, as well as the Valyrians in Celtigars and Westeros. But these are exceptions, and it seems that these Valyrians just happened to be out of town when the mountains began to tremble. But the Targaryens were of pure Valyrian blood, dragon lords of ancient lineage. 12 years before the doom of Valyria, 114 BC, Aenar Targaryen sold his holdings in the freehold and the lands of the Long Summer and moved with all his wives, wealth, slaves, dragons, siblings, kin, and children to Dragonstone, a bleak island citadel beneath the smoking mountain in the narrow sea. Aenar appears to have methodically closed all his business dealings, tied up all loose ends, probably made a mint selling his properties in the freehold and surrounding countryside. I mean, imagine selling property in a desirable area of London or New York City or Tokyo, in addition to a countryside villa. He gathered every member of his extended household, including siblings and slaves, dragons, and importantly, dragon eggs, and flown off whole hog for a barren rock in the middle of the Narrow Sea. Or more importantly, the middle of the Narrow Sea trade. And then the doom doesn't come for a further 12 years. Approximately around this time, more Valyrian steel blades make their way into Westeros than ever before. For instance, Ice, the great sword of House Stark, may date from this time, if not slightly before, and Bright Roar of House Lannister almost certainly does. Coincidence? Perhaps. But I like to think that Aenar Targaryen quietly and shrewdly saved everyone he cared about, including the dragons, and also made 10 or 12 boatloads of cash, all because, unlike King Priam, he listened to his maiden daughter, Daenys the Dreamer. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, please click like. If you really liked it, please click subscribe. Tell all your friends, and I'll see you again soon.